So this is really the big event of the day. Last race 100 years ago in 1919, the King's Cup, won then by the Australian Armed Forces #1 crew. It'll be a different name on the King's Cup. 100 years later, Centenary Regatta. And it's at 3 o'clock. Normally the ground is at 3 o'clock, but this is so important, this race. Commemorating that regatta, celebrating the peace of the First World War. And 2 crews. The US Armed Forces, just a little pat on the back. Margaret Dawson, the 2 women in the American 8, patting Griffin Dunn on the back there. And the German 8, the German Armed Forces 8, are their opponents on the Berkshire Station. So in 1919, it was the Australians against the crew from Oxford University. The Australians won by 1 length. That was on Saturday, the 5th of July. Just over 100 years later, we now have the crew from the German Armed Forces, the Bundeswehr, against the crew from the Navy, the American Armed Forces, and they will be closest to you.
It's kind of spine-tingling stuff, isn't it? It's great to see. We saw the other entries from this event doing a road pass at lunchtime. There's such good camaraderie between them all, and off they go. They're clean off the start.
Well, it's a really take your pick on this race. The Americans, 4 big guys in the middle from the Navy's heavyweight program, 2 lightweights in the stern, 2 females up in the bows of the American 8, as it is in the German 8. You have Rata Sina Kuhn and Ulrike Torpusch. You see Sina Kuhn up in the bows and Ulrike Torpusch. And then real talent in the middle of this weight. You can see first man with the cap on, Tim Grumman, Corporal Tim Grumman, Olympic champion from London in the quad, the 30-year-old. And the Americans have first blood as they come out of the island in this final of the King's Cup. There's the 2 Americans, Alex Martinson from Corvallis, Oregon, up there in the bow seat. Margaret Dawson from Annapolis, Maryland, riding shotgun up in the bows.
His bow pair race a couple of weeks ago at Henley Women's Regatta. A very strong performance in the Champ 4s. So they know this course. They've been here for a few weeks now and actually staying in contention with the Germans. These 2 very high standard crews, you know, they're not here to play around. They're here to beat each other today, and there's some great shots down the German boat there. Some gritted teeth from their bow girl.
Sina Kuhn bows. Ulrike Torpusch was in the pair in the 2014 World Championships, finished 13th with Sophie Paul, so she's got international experience. And the stroke man, Lars Wishart, the German boat, the 32-year-old, was in the European Championships in Glasgow in the lightweight men's single, finished 4th. He's a reserve officer for the German Army and has come in to make up this crew. The German Army don't have any sort of rowing as a sport, so they've had to make up this crew from officers serving in the German Army and reserve officers like Tim Grumman, Lars Wishart and Corporal Ulrike Torpusch.
These are some very hard people at Martin, aren't they? These guys are not going to give up. They're all in active service. They're tough people representing their country and also being in their armed services. They know how to put themselves on the line. That's what they're really doing here down this Henley course, because it's neck and neck.
A historic occasion for the world of rowing, for Henley Regatta and for these 2 crews from the USA and the German Armed Forces. There are the blades of the German Armed Forces crew leading this race of the King's Cup. We've seen 8 crews contest the events from early on in the regatta. These are the 2 remaining. Lars Wishart, 32-year-old stroke man, Rio Olympian from the lightweight men's 4 minors, finished 9th in that event. Such experience behind him. Corporal Anton Braun in the 7 seats, and they are providing the power which is propelling their 8 ahead of the American Armed Forces 8, men and women from the Navy. It's fantastic to see mixed crews. Just so important, the role that women now play in the armed forces, Jess.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference they're showing for the past 100 years, and I think it's great to have that representation here. I'd love to see some mixed events coming into Henley Royal. If any of the stewards are listening, I'd be well up for that. So it's really cool to see these crews coming down here now, showing how well that can work, these mixed crews.
Stroke midshipman, 2nd class, Chandler Washburn from Jacksonville, Florida, in the stroke seat. In front of him is the cox, Matthew Cazzano from Seaville, New Jersey. And at the moment, the Americans just in the rhythm, just settling into a nice rhythm, and they have not let the Germans get away. There's still great contact there for the Americans, Jess.
Really close race. I'm just looking down the American boat there. There's got some big guys in the middle of that boat. The 4-man John Lamb, 5-man Jared Tainter. They're big, strong guys. They're obviously not shying away from their training at the moment, and they've kept themselves right in contention. This is a cracking race, half a canvas, I'd say.
Well, Tim Grumman, the 5-man of the German 8, he may be the Olympic champion in the men's quads in 2012, but how much training has he been doing recently? Because all this American crew have raced in the NCAAs, the National American Championships for women, the IRAs, the Championships for men. They have been training all year, and at the moment the fitness seems to be telling, and the Americans are moving through, Jess.
Here we go, at Remenham, so we've got about 600-700 metres to go, and they've called it there at the 3/4 mile, just about a canvas, almost a bow ball, I'd say, in rowing.
Last year the race, or last year, say 100 years ago, the race was won in 7 minutes and 7 seconds by the Australians. It's going to be a lot quicker than that today. 3:09 to the 40 mark. Expect to see them come down in around about 6.5 minutes. And the Germans are under real pressure, aren't they? Lars Wischert, the stroke man, trying to dig in, but the American bows are in front.
It's the race of the day.
Race of the day, the race of the century, the King's Cup, last won by the Australians 100 years ago today. This is the focal point of Henley Regatta in 2019. A celebration of peace in 1919, a celebration of rowing in 2019, and it's really serving us up with a great race. USA on the left of the picture, Germans on the right, can't split them.
Who's going to get this down in closure? They're going to hear big roars in 1 second. They're going to come down to see all these people in their deck chairs. Who's going to push their bow ball ahead? And I say it right now, the Americans just squeezed it, half a bow ball.
The Americans have, but the Germans aren't letting go. You've got experience in that boat. Watch the 5-man, Corporal Tim Grumman, the 30-year-old who's Olympic champion from London 2012, just down the road at Dorney Lake. Can he inspire his crewmates? Caroline Mayer, the coxswain, is just crying out for more effort, but the Americans are moving away.
They really have. They've slipped a seat or two. Has the German crew got any answer to this? Up, 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 up.
So the American crew rowing in a boat called Overlord, named after the operation for the armed forces in the Second World War to free Northern Europe, the invasion of Normandy, and they at the moment are leading. The Americans on the right of your picture, the Germans on the left. It's a historic race in the final of the King's Cup, and so far the American crew look to be heading. I don't think the Germans can come back from that. In the bows of the American boat, it's midshipman second class Alexandra Valenci-Martinson who's coming up to the line. She can sense it, she can feel it, she can smell the line coming up, the noise from the crowds. Here's the finish camera. The King's Cup will be won by the crew from the American Navy. The American Armed Forces take this historic victory ahead of the German Armed Forces. What a fantastic race in the highlight race, the standout race of the regatta. They are hugging their jackets. Confirmation of that result there. So that was such an exciting race, and if you have to wait 100 years for the final of the King's Cup, you couldn't be presented with a more exciting contest. Patriotism on display, but more than that, the camaraderie. All these crews have been living and training together at Dalton Barracks. There's the Germans, they led early on. And then I think it was the fitness of those Americans been rowing in the various college programs for the Naval College, lightweights, women's, and the heavyweight program. Sensational pictures from the drone just showing that head-to-head battle. And the last few strokes in that final of the King's Cup. And that's an opportunity for me to say thank you to Jess Eddy for commentating on those last 4 races, and to say welcome to Matt Britton, Henley Stewart, British bronze medalist in the World Championships, and welcome to the commentary box, Matthew. That was fun, wasn't it?
I've got to say, all week the King's Cup has had the most uproarious applause and celebration of all the races here. And it reminds us, doesn't it, that however serious sport is, there are bigger things in life, and the appreciation of the spectators has been exemplary.